Hey guys, welcome back. So today we're out at the range to talk about the 4 most common operating systems for either the PCC, pistol caliber carbine, or SMG, which stands for submachine gun. And the 4 different types we're going to talk about today will be gas operated, roller delayed, straight blowback, and radial delayed. So we'll get into that here in a moment, but first, before we get into today's video, if you enjoy the content that we produce here at the Military Arms channel, please take a moment to mash that like, share, and subscribe button. Also hit that notification bell so you'll get notified when we post new videos. And with that being said, let's get started with today's video talking about the 4 different types of operating systems and which one I personally prefer. If you guys haven't checked out Primary Arms online, please swing by and check out their website. They have all sorts of inventory that ranges from firearms to accessories, really good prices, fast shipping, outstanding customer support. If you use the code MAC and you purchase a PA branded optic or red dot sight with a magnified optic, you'll get a free scope mount with that MAC code. Or if you pick up a red dot sight or a prism sight, you'll get a free kill flash anti-reflective device. So please check out primaryarms.com. So the first operating system we're going to talk about is the CMMG Banshee and its radial delay system. That radial delay system is something that's definitely unique and relatively new to the realm of PCC/SMGs. I tend to forget to include this gun when I make videos about PCCs or SMGs, and I'm trying to rectify that with this video, and that's partly because this is a very popular operating system. Now I'm going to talk about the pros and cons in my view of each of these operating systems, and when we talk about the Banshee, the pros is that you're going to get an AR-15 type firearm. So the fire controls are going to be very familiar to you. You'll be able to drop in standard AR-15 triggers. In this case, I have a Fostech Echo trigger in the firearm. So it has the fire on release trigger, semi-automatic, and then safe. So you can use standard AR-15 accessories. You can SBR this thing, put a stock on it. You can run it as a pistol currently until ATF decides to screw with gun owners once again. And it has a threaded barrel and you can suppress it. So it's basically a 9mm AR. It just doesn't have a straight blowback system like so many others, like the original Colt and so many other ARs that have come out since. What they've done is they've used pretty much a standard AR carrier. Looks like a standard AR bolt, but it's not. On the backs of the lugs are cut at an angle. So when the lugs engage with the locking surfaces of the extension of the barrel, when the recoil starts to push rearward on that bolt face, those angled cuts are going to cause that bolt to turn and unlock and then go rearward. Now, generally, when you delay the operating system in that way, you can reduce weight or mass of the bolt or carrier. And in the case of the CMMG, it'll hinge open just like a standard AR-15. You can see the Echo trigger in there. But in the case of the CMMG, there's its bolt and carrier. It looks just like a standard AR-15. That is a standard AR-15 charging handle. But in the case of this one has a spring on it, so you can kind of get a close-up there a little bit. You can see those cuts on the back. But really, we haven't reduced the mass of this carrier at all. This is a regular-sized AR-15 type carrier. This one's currently running without a weight in it. Most 9mm ARs are going to have a weight back here, but we'll talk about that here in a moment because you can and should use weights with this. It has a standard looking key up here, but that's just to keep the bolt from turning. It doesn't really provide any other function. There's no gas piston whacking it, and there's no direct gas going into the carrier itself. And so, you know, it uses a lot of standard AR-15 parts. That's a huge bonus, right? So if you want to replace a cotter pin or you want to replace a firing pin or something like that, or a fire control unit or stocks, things like that, you have that compatibility. That's a big bonus with this system. The downside to this system is the radial delay system. We're not really reducing that reciprocating mass, so it's going to be just as jumpy as an old school 9mm Colt AR from, you know, back in the 70s. It has a lot of reciprocating mass. Beyond that, if you're using different types of ammunition, say 115 grain, 124 grain, 147 grain, or especially if you run a suppressor on it, you'll want to tune the gun for optimal performance. And by doing that, you have to include various weights inside the carrier based upon the ammunition you're going to use or whether or not you're going to use a silencer. in this weight bag, we have 3 different types of weights. We have a 1 ounce weight, a 2 ounce weight, and then a 3.5 ounce weight. And you're going to want to use the heavier weight to insert into the back of the carrier here. And there's a pin that goes across to hold the weight back here, because there's additional back pressure added to the system when you put a can on it. So you're going to run that heavier weight to make sure that it operates optimally. And that's less than optimal for me. And that's why it's not one of my favorite types of operating systems. Now, I could see this being really cool on a bottleneck cartridge like 300 Blackout, something like that. But in terms of 9mm, it still has the shortcomings of a standard 9mm AR type, pistol or rifle, and that's this big mass that reciprocates, which causes the gun to move more. And so, because you have to swap these weights in and out of the system to tune it to the ammunition, or whether or not you have a suppressor, you take the can off, you want to take the weight out, put a lighter weight in, or just leave a weight out, vice versa. All that's just a whole lot of work that's unnecessary that you won't find in the other operating systems that we're going to talk about in this video. But it's definitely unique, it's different, it's thinking outside of the box, and it's extremely popular. You'll see people buying these and talking about these quite a bit on the internet. The most simple type of operating mechanism, in my opinion, is just straight blowback, but in today's world, it seems like in the comment section of various videos, direct blowback or simple blowback gets a bad rap. People talk negatively about it, and I think that's misguided. I think that the benefits to the system are that it's extremely simple, it's extremely reliable. Downside is, typically you have a lot of mass that's moving back and forth inside of the receiver, typically. There are different designs, but one of the best designs that I think that are out there that helps to mitigate that mass movement is the B&T SPC, which is, this is one of their latest offerings, or the B&T APC 9. And you could also include the GHM 9 into this discussion. This gun was built for a law enforcement tender in Europe, and they wanted something that was more AR-15-ish in operation. So that's why it has an AR almost sized bolt. You'll see when we take it apart, it's not. It has a smaller bolt than a standard 9mm AR like what we saw in the Banshee, but it does have a T-handle charging system up here. And then for those that still want to do the HK style of charging, it has a non-reciprocating folding charging handle out front. Now, a version of the APC that I'm not showing you right now did get adopted by the US Army. The APC pioneered a patented hydraulic recoil buffering system that this SPC also has back here. So the benefits, super simple, super reliable, and the downside, typically you're going to get a little bit more perceived or felt recoil with the direct blowback. Typically, not in all cases, because this is an exception to the rule because of its hydraulic buffering system. And let's take a look at that. This is an SBR. Forward, I'm going to pop this takedown pin out. It hinges down like an AR, and you can swap out different lowers so you can accept different magazines. Then if I pull on the rear end, you can see this buffering system that is in this short extension tube here, and then it goes back to a certain point, and then it gets really difficult to compress, and that's that patented hydraulic buffering system that's decelerating that bolt mass and starts moving forward again to strip the next round from the magazine. When I take the bolt out of this, take the charging handle back. When I take the bolt out, look how tiny that is, okay? Very tiny. Now this is up here to keep the bolt from rotating, much like on the CMMG, but you'll notice this is a much smaller bolt. Because of this hydraulic system that it interfaces with in the rear, you don't have as much reciprocating mass, and it decelerates that bolt gently before it forces it to go back home, thus making it have less perceived or felt recoil than just any other blowback like an Uzi or a 9mm Colt AR that's just straight blowback. The other downside to this operating system is that it is not inexpensive. B&T products are very pricey, over a couple $1,000s. They do have the GHM 9, which is far more affordable than the APC or the SPC, and you get some of the same benefits with the GHM 9. Now let's talk about the roller delay system. Now this has been around since the 1960s, and it's been used in various different calibers or cartridges, ranging from 308, 5.56 down to 9mm, 40 Smith & Wesson, 10mm even. But the most popular would be the MP5 and 9mm. This is a current production HK firearm. This is a pistol with a brace, and it's called the SP5 versus the HK94 or or the earlier SP89. This gun is made primarily of stampings. It's very lightweight. It doesn't have a very large bolt, so that's one of the benefits to the gun. It has a very mild recoil because it has a very low bolt mass, and the roller delay system that prevents the breech from opening upon firing momentarily, let the bullet get out of the barrel and let the gas pressures drop off to a safe level. Then it starts to move rearward, extract that spent case, eject it, and then move forward again, strip around for the magazine, start the process over again. That bolt moving around is just perfectly sprung. It's very short, it's very small, lightweight. We'll show you that when we take it apart. And it's just very reliable. Now, the downsides to this is that it is roller delayed. So by that, and I've owned these as machine guns in the past, they do start to wear out and parts start to fail on them at high round counts. But in semi-automatics, you probably never run into that problem. But the roller system in this is a little bit more complex than a more current design, which I'll show you momentarily. But the chamber is also fluted. When you flute the chamber, you get gases pushing backwards. They're going to float that brass on hot gases for a moment that aids in extraction, making it even more reliable. The downside is you're blowing carbon back into the action of the gun. If you think the AR-15 is dirty, shoot an HK91, HK93, or HK94/MP5, whatever, SP5 in this case, and you're going to know what truly dirty means, especially if you slap a can on one of these. They do offer them with a tri-lug mount on them for suppression. All the guns that we have out here today are suppressible. It doesn't have modern amenities like a bolt hold open on the last shot fired like the rest of the firearms we have out here this afternoon. You have to get that click, no bang, lock the bolt to the rear, take out the spent magazine, put a fresh magazine in, slap that charging handle, reloads, and resume shooting. So that's the downside of this particular design, is that it doesn't have that last round hold open. Let's take it apart here really quick and take a look on the inside of the SP5, and let's take a look at that roller delay system. I'm going to show you another one that is a little bit more simple in design. And so you can see this is the bolt head and these are the rollers, and when the bolt is in battery, those rollers push out into recesses, and then when the gun fires, the cartridge is going to push rearward on this bolt face, which ultimately will overcome the resistance offered by these rollers. It will extend the bolt, and then it will unlock, move rearward, and then the spring pressure go forward again. So very low mass bolt. The only complexities is that there's a lot of little tiny parts, not a lot, but more than other operating systems. There's parts inside this bolt head that will potentially wear out. I've had to replace them in submachine guns before. The assembly disassembly is just a little bit more complicated, but with any type of experience, you become very familiar with the system, and it's easy to do. It's not overly complicated. So lots of aftermarket support for these, really reliable, really soft shooting, perhaps the softest shooting of all the firearms we have out here today. And yeah, just an absolute classic. Now, let's just take a brief look though at the Stribog. This gun is a roller delay gun, but it's much simpler in design than the H&K. If you look through the charging handle hole, there's a little roller, and as I pull the bolt to the rear, you're going to see that roller rise up. That's the delay system right there, versus the two rollers of the H&K. It rises up, that delays it just long enough for the bolt then to move rearward, cycle, and go back. Again, it's blowback operated. It's not using any gas to do this other than the propellant gases, but it's blowing this back, overcoming that resistance offered by that roller. And it's very simple as compared to the HK in design. And we just recently did some testing with this gun. And previously I said these guns were problem childs, and Global Ordnance released these 30-round curved magazines, which we talk about again in a recent video, and this completely changed the dynamic of the gun. This gun used to have all sorts of malfunctions when I would shoot it. Those have been cured by these new 30-round magazines, so check them out if you have a Stribog. So the next operating system that offers really mild recoil is the SIG MPX. Now, you've seen me talk about this gun quite a bit in the past. This gun has gone through a number of different evolutionary changes. It's hard to keep up because SIG doesn't, increment its nomenclature when it makes pretty significant changes to its basic operating design. But this, at the time when I got it, was the most current version out there. Now, I have gone ahead and changed the barrel on this and the gas port plug, because the port plug and the barrel are made by Inled We Trust, and One of the downsides to this, the upside being very mild recoil impulse. All these guns have fixed barrels, so they're very accurate. This gun has a little tiny gas piston in it, so it taps gas off immediately upon firing to operate the gas system, and it's a short stroke gas piston that then cycles the low mass bolt, so it has a very, very mild recoil impulse. This gun and the MP5/SP5, I would say, are kind of competing for the softest shooting of the firearms out here. And again, that's because of its gas operating system. So the gun should be lighter than, say, a straight blowback gun because you have a low mass bolt, but SIG has designed it with a lot of aluminum in the upper and lower receivers, and there's really no weight benefit to this operating system. So they had the opportunity to make it very lightweight, like the SP5 uses stampings. This is all machined billet aluminum, and so that makes the gun just a little bit heavy for such a light recoiling gun, but the mass does also help with that light recoil impulse, so maybe it's a bonus. So the downside is earlier versions of the guns had problems operating with water in the barrel. SIG has slowly made a ton of rolling changes to the gun, and this particular gun, again, I've put that Inled We Trust adjustable gas plug in there and the Inled We Trust barrel in it in an attempt to reduce the amount of gas that just hangs out right here with the suppressor on it by the shooter's face. If you don't have a slight breeze, you're going to get more gas in your face from this gun than the other guns, which is a definite negative. Now you can control that a little bit with the type of ammunition that you shoot. This is Özgürsen ammunition. This is Turkish ammunition that's available over at Copper Custom. This stuff is definitely more gassy, more dirty than the Federal that I shoot, and so you're going to see more gas coming out of it. But if you shoot Federal or some of the different types of ammunition, you can get that gas level down that's in your face, but it's still going to be more gassy than the other operating systems. As you can see, it has a low mass bolt. Here's your recoil springs and guide rods. It uses a rotating bolt like an AR-15, but you'll notice that the lugs are much bigger. The gun tends to run a bit more dirty than just a simple blowback. That's again because you have a gas piston up here that's bleeding off gas right in front of the chamber, and that's why this gun is so carboned up. But I'm also running a suppressor on it, which also increases the amount of gas into the system, which also increases the carbon buildup. But you can see that's a very low mass bolt. The gas piston, which is just under the handguard here, taps this right there. You can see where it makes contact. It's a short stroke piston, so that initiates the unlocking sequence. When it's in battery, it's locked like this. When the gas piston taps right there, as the bolt goes back, it unlocks, travels rearward, ejects the spent case, goes forward, picks up a fresh round, and the shooting cycle starts over again. All right, so I've already done a video on what I think is my favorite PCC. A little bit shift of gears here. The SPC came out, and I've really been enjoying shooting this gun quite a bit. I don't know that that necessarily changes my opinion, but this gun I have by my bedside, and I shoot it probably more than any other PCC I currently own, and so I really do love this gun. But again, I hope you enjoyed the conversation about the 4 most common types of operating systems and PCCs currently out there. I hope you found it informative. If you enjoy videos like this and you want to support us here at the Military Arms Channel in the age of demonetization, become part of our Patreon family. There's a link down below. Join Patreon. You'll get early access to videos like this one. You'll have direct access to me. I answer all private communications, and there's some other perks to becoming a Patreon supporter. Also, right here on YouTube, underneath the video player you're watching right now, there's this little join button. Mash that join button and consider supporting us right here on YouTube. And last but not least, guys, please swing by and check out coppercustom.com. Thank you for 13 years of support, and we'll talk to you guys soon.